Right, welcome to episode 118, turn that down, of the Fertility Podcast. Let me explain what is going on, why this sounds different. I am totally multitasking, and I don't think what I'm doing is illegal, but I've got my recorder on whilst I'm driving, having just got back to Manchester from London, where I was at Fertility Fest. And I've got to go and pick up Phoenix, my little boy, from my parents, because they're going to Edinburgh in the morning and they've had him all weekend. And I've nearly got my podcast episode ready to share with you, but I just needed to do my intros and outros. So I'm doing them on the move, because if I wait till I get home and put Phoenix to bed, he probably won't get to bed and I'll be too tired. And my husband's on his way back from Amsterdam, so that's my life today, hence you being in the car with me. Welcome to the Fertility Podcast. If you've never listened to this podcast episode before, a whole host of episodes with fertility experts as well as people sharing their stories. So this one is again a little bit different because there's so much going on in the UK in the fertility space at the moment. Fertility Fest is fully underway. It's on day 6 and I've been there the last 2 days. And what I'm hoping you're going to hear is the audio that I've recorded into my mic from my Insta Live from a quick chat I had with Jessica Hepburn at the end of today, because I haven't worked out how you save an Insta Live. So what I'm intending to do when I have got home is to record that Insta Live into my phone, which you're going to hear now. The live.
Hello, world.
Hello.
From the Fertility Fest house, day 6.
So I've been chasing Jessica since I've been here for the last 24 hours to get a moment to talk with her. So this is Jessica after day 6?
So we're on day 6 now, yeah.
Just finished day 6. It was the TTC day.
Yeah, we've just had an amazing session, have 2 sessions. It's been brilliant.
The thing about Fertility Fest, which Katie Lindemann, who's Uber Baron's club, said to me yesterday, is it's about emotional pacing.
Emotional pacing?
I thought was a really lovely
Beautiful.
term.
Yeah.
Because it's emotional.
Yeah.
And it's intense.
Yeah.
But there's such an energy. And I was watching, so today there was a meditation movement session, and I was watching you thinking, because I was recording, and
You were supposed to have your eyes closed.
No, I was making sure I was recording it. So I've never watched a meditation thing. I've always taken part in it. And I was watching you thinking, thank God you're getting a bit of time to just put your head down.
I know.
But it was also remarkable seeing how people respond to that type of thing.
Yeah.
But just, if you can, this is an epic festival this year.
It is. It's our biggest, yeah.
We've known each other since the
beginning.
Since the beginning, and I've watched it in its different incarnations. And first of all, I mean, your star is shining so bright. You need to take stock and just acknowledge what you've done, because it is amazing. I want to know how you're feeling.
I'm feeling a bit knackered. I'm looking at myself on screen thinking you look knackered, Jessica, as well. But I'm feeling very proud and very blessed and very happy. And we've had so far this week, we started with a 3-hour special on the Emma Barnett show, Radio 5 Live, to launch the festival. And you can still
get that on BBC Sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had the Queer Family, and we've had the Invisible Man, and we've had 2 sessions around parenting after IVF. One was really emotional, load of mums with babies and toddlers, just weeping, because the experience never leaves you. And then we had another session in the evening. Yesterday there was a whole load of sessions called There's More to Life Than Having Children. I got to interview one of my heroes, Benjamin Zephaniah.
Donor Concierge. Hello everybody. Sorry, I've just look, We Agree, Fertility Fest is amazing. Cancer and Fertility UK, thanks Jessica so much for what you and Gabby have created. These are lovely comments.
It's just stuff like that makes it all worthwhile. It's a lot of hard work. And then today trying to conceive, and the first performance of Avalanche last night with Matsy and Pete, we had about 1,000 people in the audience. And I just this is what I set out to do. I set out to make the world of fertility and infertility better for people who are going through it, but also for everyone who is struggling to conceive, going on a complex journey to conceive. And here we are, and thank you, world.
This is Infertility Says, you are both so inspirational. Can't wait to join you at the festival day on Friday. So talk a bit about what's coming up.
So later on, so tomorrow evening we've got something on miscarriage, a whole event on miscarriage, and then on Tuesday we've got Young, Gifted and Fertile, looking at premature ovarian insufficiency and MRKH. We've got the amazing Natasha Bishop from the Pants Project, and also showing the showing of Flush, and that is totally sold out, so you'll have to get returns for that. And then we're doing Race, Religion and Reproduction, and then we've got our big fertility questions, which is part of our big VIP press night of Avalanche, which will be on Wednesday, so look out for the reviews after that night of the show. And then we have our scratch night, and then our big fat festival day, a whole day putting IVF under the creative spotlight. And then we have What Comes First, the career or the egg, next Saturday, which is looking at, you know, particularly for women in their 20s or 30s that might be thinking about, do I want a baby, or egg freezing or solo motherhood. And then we have the Gift, amazing family event on Sunday, a week today, which is for families with children born from donation and surrogacy. And then at the end of next week we have a whole day on fertility education.
And breathe. Now, you've done an epic amount of press over the last couple of weeks, and it's amazing that it's been, I've had all sorts of different people going, I've seen it, like my mother-in-law, bless her, who's like, I've seen it in the Mail, and my mother, who was like, and I've seen Jessica in the Telegraph, and different people who are like, I've seen Jessica on BBC Breakfast, and everybody's seeing you everywhere. How do you feel that your message is getting across this year in particular?
I definitely feel, you know, we had some amazing things happen last year, particularly around fertility education, because we got a front page story on the Times, which created a debate and has actually led the government to put a fertility education, more rounded approach to fertility education on the curriculum for the first time. But yeah, we've absolutely had a lot of press coverage this year. Definitely Sally Cheshire, the chair of the HFEA's comments last weekend about needing fertility clinics to be more transparent with their patients, more supportive of their patients, has also amazingly kick-started the festival and all the coverage that we've been having as well. So yeah, I'm happy, I'm tired and happy.
Immeasurably more. I'm so glad for these Insta and Facebook live videos. I'm stuck in Leeds and won't make it to the fest. Gutted I can't be there. So pleased you're helping us up north. Keep in touch.
Yeah.
Well, we are recording as much as we can, trying to share as much. And the brilliant thing is there's now so many more people, especially on Instagram, who are sharing and doing all of that. So, and then you get a bit of time off, do you?
Not really.
Right, okay.
No, because I'm...
She's a superwoman.
Well, we're taking the festival to ESHRE in June.
In Vienna.
ESHRE is the European Society for Human Reproduction and Embryology. It's the biggest fertility conference in the world, attended by 13,000 professionals. And this is very much a sort of an event for artists and professionals and patients and the public. But the brilliant thing about going to ESHRE is that we can really get the professionals. And what I want them to do is understand the patient experience more. So that's fantastic.
Do you think as well that taking it into their face helps them understand that they need to be more creative in how they present their information?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just think it helps them in all sorts of ways and brings us closer together.
Yeah.
But then, as some people might know, like another big strand of my work is I take on these big endurance challenges to raise awareness of what it means to struggle to conceive and go on a complex journey to conceive. And alternative ways of having families, which is something we really explore in this festival. So I have to go into my final stages of training once all this is out their way, and that's pretty full on. So no rest, I'm afraid.
And aren't you going to Sydney?
Yes, Avalanche is going to Sydney.
There's a question here, Immeasurably More. Is Avalanche coming up north at any point? West Yorkshire Playhouse needs it. Going to Sydney first, aren't you going to Broadway as well?
No. Well, maybe. But what is definitely confirmed is that we're going to Sydney at the end of August, beginning of September.
And then a UK tour?
Not a UK tour planned at the moment, but
she needs to climb Everest, Immeasurably More. So for now, we need to look north.
I know. I'm going from Sydney direct to Nepal to climb the 6th highest mountain in the world in training for Everest.
Of course. Dona Concierge said, let's do Fertility Fest in America.
Yes.
Right, Michelle, we need to get that sorted. All right, I'm going to let Jessica go. I just wanted to grab her and get you guys to get to have a chat with her. So we will be sharing more from what I've been recording, and I know that there's loads of people here. I can see, if you look over there, you can see the BFN girls. There's Kat from Trying News. There's Sarah Banks. There's loads of people here who will be sharing and doing what they can to keep you up to date. So just keep an eye on your Insta, and we're doing the best that we can to keep sharing. All right, so enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.
Now, the last 2 days that I've spent at Fertility Fest, I was there on the Friday night for Parenting After IVF, which was a fascinating play. You will be hearing some of that because I've got some of the audio Then it was the More to Life day on Saturday. Again, I was sharing some audio. And then today, when I'm recording this, was the TTC day. Again, we're sharing audio with you. I'm hoping to get a bonus episode out for you this Wednesday. So to make sure you don't miss any of what's going on, because I'm going to be pumping out content, you need to stop what you're doing right now and rate and review this podcast and subscribe, because that will make sure you don't miss any content, and it will make sure I feel very loved from all my running around up and down on trains and making lots of content and knowing that it's useful to you. So if you could do that for me, that would be amazing. This podcast is supported by some amazing people who enable me to jump on trains, to scoot around, to gather content, and I'm going to tell you a bit about them now.
We used to get asked almost every day if we were going to launch a multi-cycle IVF plan, so we've listened to our patients' request and we now have this available for you. Assured Fertility's brand new multi-cycle plan complements our range of 100% refund plans, which have already been a real success. The Assured multi-cycle plan is great value and includes up to 2 cycles of IVF or ICSI treatment with the transfer of all suitable embryos generated. You will find that if you have your treatment using our multi-cycle plan, you will see a significant saving on costs against going to the clinic directly. There's no waiting list, and we will organise your appointment with the clinic for you. What's more, you don't have to have a medical, and the tests needed to join this plan are minimal. And the vast majority of patients who apply are accepted. To find out more about the Assured multi-cycle or 100% refund plans, call me, I'm Holly, or our friendly team on 033 234 0895 or visit assuredfertility.co.uk.
You'll know that I talk a lot about support on this podcast, and that's why I'm really chuffed to be working with one of my sponsors, Fertility. They offer extra fertility benefits at no extra cost. And when you start your treatment with Fertility, you'll benefit from support and guidance 7 days a week with your very own Fertility advisor. Plus, there's an app to keep you in the know every step of your fertility journey. And you know what? You pay the same as you would at a clinic. Find out more at apricity.life/podcast. Another of my sponsors is International Andrology, who specialise in diagnosing and treating male infertility. Around 50% of infertility issues are male factor, and all too often, men aren't even evaluated at the start of a fertility journey, which might result in unnecessary treatments, costs, and disappointment. International Andrology is one of the few specialist clinics in the UK offering a holistic approach to increase your chances to conceive naturally or via the IVF route. As well as treating the underlying causes of male infertility, their doctors have some of the highest success rates in microsurgical sperm retrieval. So, if you're looking for a true specialist to assist you on your fertility journey, visit london-andrology.co.uk today and do mention the Fertility Podcast. So I'm now going to welcome Mel Brown, who's been a guest on the podcast before. Mel is a nutritionist and does amazing work. You've probably seen her on Instagram because she's always sharing quite fascinating insights into her world. And that's the reason why she is here, because I saw Mel post something about what sounded like a really interesting conference she'd been to called Women and Sleep. And I wanted to know more about it. Mel, welcome to the podcast again.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell me about what you learnt. Everything. No, what I'm really keen to know, because you'd shared this post about how you'd been at the conference and were talking about the relevance and the importance of sleep when it comes to fertility. And I think it's possibly overlooked. We know we need to be in the optimal place that we can be, but I do think we underestimate the benefits of sleep, don't we?
I think indeed we do, and especially nowadays with people getting less and less sleep. And one of the most interesting parts of this conference was a professor from the States who did the bit on circadian rhythms, and that's the part that I'm quite interested in, because I see so many clients that basically, are getting home from work at 8 o'clock and having their supper at 9 and then trying to have some downtime, and they're not going to bed till midnight. They're fretting and worrying, and then they have to get up some of them get up at 5:30 that go into the city, or they've got long commutes. And I wanted to find out whether this would directly affect fertility. And actually, it's always been known for a long time that shift workers, people who work for airlines, so stewardesses and pilots have always been, it's been known for some time that they have menstrual irregularities, and even long haul travel for the rest of us going to Australia can send our menstrual cycle absolutely pear-shaped. But if you do this on a regular basis, there's certainly a great deal of evidence that fertility is quite diminished. But I didn't really know whether it affected us, nor people who don't work on shifts to the same degree, and it seems certainly that it does. And the things that I was specifically looking at were the things related to fertility, to IVF. And so I was really pleased to see that things were referred to. So, for example, the thing that I didn't know was luteinizing hormone, which is the hormone of ovulation that surges mid-cycle. And basically that surge pushes the egg out of the follicle into the fallopian tube. And that hormone is under that 24-hour body clock control. And so any disturbances to that could potentially affect ovulation.
Oh, interesting.
Which is interesting, and I don't think anybody knows. I mean, as usual, whenever you go to conference, there's always, and more research is needed, which is true, big trials need to be done. But that I thought was very interesting. And then the little bits about uterine receptivity. So obviously there's a lot now. I see a lot of clients where implantation just doesn't happen. It looks like the embryos are good quality, they've gone to blastocyst, and everybody's scratching their heads. There's endometrial scratches and ERA tests and Neupogen washes, and you name it. Everything is done to prepare the uterus to receive the embryo, and it just doesn't happen. And so I was interested in the sleep, the stress that comes from sleep deprivation potentially affecting uterine receptivity. I don't know how that is, but there was a diagram on the slides which was exactly of that, and also the raise in TNF alpha, and TNF alpha is related to natural killer cells, so you get a raise in natural killer cells. So that's sleep stress pathway seems to have quite a direct effect on fertility and certainly IVF.
All right, so with that in mind, the best practice, let's say, to try and enhance your sleep through this process, because we know that people get stressed, we know that your stress can affect, as we've just been talking about, your sleep. I am somebody who has had a very difficult relationship with sleep, in that I used to work on a breakfast show, so I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I used to have to go to bed at silly o'clock and really struggled, and actually went to see an acupuncturist for my sleep, and it turned into then seeing that acupuncturist for fertility. Now I have a much better relationship with my sleep. I mean, I take a magnesium supplement, but I know you talk about the light in the bedroom as well. So just on that acupuncture point as a starting point, I mean, was there any conversations about acupuncture helping sleep where you were?
No.
Right, okay.
No, it was very medical,
yeah,
and very evidence-based. But the light thing was very interesting because, and I always recommend that my clients use a SAD lamp, a wake-up SAD lamp, so one that wakes you up in the morning, or that you put on your desk, because there's certainly evidence that getting 20 minutes of natural daylight, and even this weather is fine, in the morning time before 9 a.m. Can set your master clock, your circadian rhythms properly. So if you're getting up in the dark, so winter time, there is a relationship. Well, there are studies showing that IVF success rates are lower in the winter. They're higher in the spring and the summer, and it's probably to do with vitamin D and, maybe people generally feeling better. But it seems that I think it's probably also to do with this fact that you get up in the dark, you go to work in the dark, you've got artificial light, the built environment is this artificial light all the time, and you come home in the dark. And so you just don't, from between October and April, well, now obviously it's getting light in the afternoon, but people are still in the office at this time, you know. So actually, there is a lot of evidence that you can start setting your clock by exposing yourself to this blue light in the morning. So it's either walking for 20 minutes, you know, being outside at 8 o'clock when it's light, or it's using the lamps, which are especially blue light, to wake up in the morning. And then obviously blue light is our wake up light, but it's not our going to sleep light. So in order to set ourselves for going to sleep and to be able to release melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, and as we know, a very potent antioxidant. So there's lots of research on the use of melatonin during IVF for improving egg quality. So melatonin is used. I quite often recommend it as a very potent antioxidant. So if your melatonin isn't working properly, and that's dark triggered, dark warm light, so the advice would be, you know, to prepare for going to sleep. Preparing for going to sleep is not being in a bright bedroom, going on Facebook, you know, checking your phone, all that kind of thing, and then turning off the light and lying down and hoping you're going to go to sleep, because the chemicals haven't been triggered. So you have to, after about 6 o'clock, you've got to kind of calm down the light, and apparently you have to prepare, you know, this expression sleep hygiene, which is a kind of rather odd expression, but apparently it's very important, because it's telling your body to get ready for bed, to get ready to go to sleep. So it's calming everything down in the right order. And so maybe having a warm bath, or, you know, I always say to my clients, look, have a warm bath. I'm a big fan of Aromatherapy Associates Deep Relax Bath Oil in it. Read Grazia or Living Magazine or Hello, you know, something like where you can just look at the pictures and not get stressed. And then warm bed, cold room, so having the heating on. We are evolved to be able to sleep in very cold temperatures, and so it's believed that having the heating on at night when it's, you know, in the winter, is really bad for our sleep. We need our warm bed as if it's covered in bear skins, and then our icy cold cave air to get us to sleep properly. So it's all those kind of little things, but going to bed early enough. There was a statement on one of the slides. It was lots of true and false statements, and one of them was, is the sleep before midnight more valuable than sleep after midnight? Because that's the old wives' tale. This professor who presented this presentation, she said, well, the answer is yes and no. That actually it's the quantity of sleep that you get. And if you go to bed after midnight, you're very much more likely to get less sleep than if you go to bed before midnight. And I know that from my clients and myself, that the later I go to bed, the more anxious I am about not getting enough sleep. So if I'm in bed by 11:30, I'm panicking. Oh my God, it's nearly 12 o'clock. Oh my God, I'm not going to get enough sleep. Whereas if I'm in bed by 10:30 and the light's off, I'm not worried about it. It's a kind of weird thing. But it seems to be that the cutoff point for sleep damage with everybody is under 6 hours.
Okay.
6 hours is the time. And actually you can catch up with sleep. You can do sleep catch up at the weekend. It used to be believed that you couldn't catch up with your sleep. You just had to get more sleep consistently. But it's been discovered now that you can catch up with your sleep. But of course, if you're quite sensitive sleep-wise and you go to bed at midnight or 1 o'clock at the weekend, and then you get up at 10 or 11, by the time you have to get up on Monday morning, you've sent your circadian rhythms out again. So they were advising just doing it for one night, maybe Saturday, sleeping in on a Saturday, and then getting up at sort of 8 o'clock-ish on a Sunday. You know, it's quite technical, actually.
I love the fact that you can do sleep catch-up. I know that you can't quite do sleep stockpile, but it's good to know that you can restore. And I think that it's so vital, and it is an indulgence, but it's such an important indulgence that ultimately this is something that is free, that we can all do, and it's so beneficial. And when you were talking about the sleep hygiene, which I do love that term, even though it's a bit weird, the whole idea of the blackout blind and the earplugs and the eye mask, which is what I used to do when I was doing my kind of 8 o'clock having to go to bed for a 4:30 start. And I just met my now husband at the time, and he was like, this is really attractive, you know, earbuds, eye mask, literally lying like I'm in a coffin. But There are, and I know, I mean, I not so much now, but I used to have to go to bed in absolute silence. And if that's what you need to do, you need to make that environment, don't you?
You have to make that environment. You really do. And there are very good products, like I mentioned, that those Bose sleep buds. I mean, there's mixed research on those, but they seem to be very effective. Definitely blackout, eye masks, because it's the environment that interrupts our sleep more than anything else. It is the noise and the light from street lamps and things like that. But actually, there was another interesting thing, which was that women, and there are a few slides supporting this, that women with diminished ovarian reserve are 3 times more likely to have, 30 times more likely to have diminished or disturbed sleep. By the time you've discovered you've got diminished ovarian reserve, maybe it makes you so anxious and stressed that you don't sleep. But these studies seem to definitely suggest that sleep is incredibly important. It's our wear and repair time, and we just try as we might to get out of that and sleep at different times and not get enough sleep at night, and wake up in the dark and go to bed in the blue light. We can't do it. We just can't do it. So especially when you're going through IVF, which is such a critical time. And actually, it's easier to do these things, funnily enough, when you are actually going, because it's like a project. I will say to my clients, this is a project. It's not like it's it goes on and on and on about, it's the same with all the other things, not drinking and doing this and that and the other. You can't keep it up really, really well for ages. But when you're starting your IVF cycle, you just have to think, okay, I have to be in bed for at least 7 hours so that if I wake up, I've got a little bit of spare time to go back to sleep and I'm not going to get anxious.
I was going to ask whether there was a essential time, because often with some of these lifestyle changes you need to give, say, 3 months to implement them. But if people are listening thinking, oh my God, I've already started my latest treatment and maybe I'm not getting enough sleep, rather than freaking out about it, kind of you could literally start right now and
yes, absolutely. You go on Amazon, you get your light lamp because of the dark mornings now if you're getting up in the dark, and you go to bed. Literally, that's it. You're getting up in the light, you're going to bed in the dark, and you're allowing yourself as many hours sleep as you possibly can get in. It's like school nights. That's what I always say to my clients. Don't push this, because if you don't get enough sleep, something else will give. Your immune system, you'll get a cold. You don't want that when you're having an IVF cycle, that maybe gets worse. You've absolutely got to take the best care of yourself, and sleep is an essential part of that care package that you're going to do for yourself during IVF.
And obviously we're talking about IVF treatment. If you are listening and you're just trying and it's taking longer than expected, and you're not yet looking at more tests, you're just trying to get as much information as you can, this as well is massively relevant because it could be a key factor.
Absolutely. And ages ago, I read a study, I think it was a Chinese study, because actually they do a lot of research on fertility in China for some reason. It was a Chinese study, so big study. They always get huge cohorts for their studies, looking at the effect of sleeplessness on men, on male fertility. And this saw that under 6 hours, particularly if it was after midnight, so they did see a relationship between midnight and fertility and sleep. The sperm was much poorer motility. I think motility was affected. You almost get the feeling that the sperm are just knackered, they just can't swim the distance, but it certainly seems that it affects both people. And if you're thinking about the LH surge, then that's the time to be very careful of. And actually, Natalie, there was an interesting thing. Premenstrual symptoms showed positive outcomes with blue light therapy. So people who had very severe PMS were treated with blue light therapy. As I've mentioned, the lamps, massively better, more improvement in their symptoms. So that kind of fits in it as well, because obviously that's the luteal phase, post-ovulation, when all the hormones, the estrogen levels are dropping. So that seemed to show a real relationship between light exposure and PMS symptoms as well. So yeah, I'd say it applies to everybody, well, everybody anyway, but certainly if you're trying to have a baby, you have to kind of go back to basics a bit with it.
And without stating the obvious, obviously the aim is for you to successfully get pregnant. And once that baby arrives, you're going to wish you'd had as much sleep as you possibly could.
Oh,
So
you sure are. Yes, now is the time, Natalie. Couldn't put it better myself.
This is such fascinating stuff. Thanks for sharing it, Mel, and do keep posting
I will.
on Insta.
You're very welcome.
It's so true and it's so obvious and it's so accessible and it's such a big part. And I just hope that if this is something that you can add into your life and get more sleep, you will just feel better anyway. With all that you're going through, you can arm yourself with that one thing.
And you're more resilient.
And especially if you're in a place where you've been told you need to lose weight, because I think people underestimate that having enough sleep does help.
Oh, it does. Yeah, cortisol levels affect weight, so that's stress, that's sleep relationship with stress. Yep. I mean, and as you said at the beginning, this is free. You don't have to pay for this. So yeah, you must do it.
Get your Zeds in.
Yeah, get your Zeds in.
Thank you, Mel. It's been a pleasure as always.
You're welcome, Natalie. Thanks a lot to you too.
Right, I've really written up that chat for these show notes, which I was doing backstage whilst at Fertility Fest. You see, I'm always thinking of you and what I can do to help you. So the show notes for this episode are thefertilitypodcast.com/sleep. It's very straightforward. Go and have a look and pick up some more of Mel's tips. And as always, if you aren't following me on the different social platforms, it's at FertilityPoddy on Twitter and Insta. The Fertility Podcast page on Facebook is where I've streamed the Fertility Fight Club from Saturday at Fertility Fest, which is part of More to Life Than Children, and it was really good. There was Yvonne John, who's been a former guest of mine. There was Sheridan Voisey, who's been a former guest of mine. There was the hilarious Bibi Lynch, who is a journalist and just a really outspoken, funny lady. And a fascinating, lovely lady called Blythe Pepino. And Blythe is part of a birth strike campaign that she's created and was talking about her reasons for deciding to not have children. So, as you can imagine, some really diverse views, interesting viewpoints, and you'll also get to hear the audience's response to it all. So have a look at the Fertility Podcast Facebook page. Please do share that Facebook Live if you can, because the more people we can get watching all this content that we're creating from Fertility Fest and that I'm going to be making, please share. If there's people that just don't get all of this and you just want them to watch something or listen to something, share it with them. It's all of our jobs really to keep spreading the word as best we can. I hope you don't mind me taking you on a little car journey. I'm back in Manchester, just driving through Altrincham. It's 10 to 8 on Sunday evening. You'll be listening to this from Monday onwards, end of April 2019, and I feel like this is a special moment. You're literally in my world, and I feel like I get to be in your world a bit, so this is like a bonding experience. Well, you're going to have to stay with me until I get to some traffic lights, because I can't look down to find where the stop button is. What else can I share with you? I finished my coaching course. Well, I finished the training of my coaching. I'm training to be a fertility coach, and I told myself that April was the month. I did this brilliant thing called Power Surge through my dear business mentor pal Nadia Finer, and I've ploughed through the coaching material. I've nearly finished it. I almost got a red light there, but I'm still going, so you're going to have to listen to me waffle on. I'm going to be looking for a case study to stop working with, and then I'm going to be helping you with my coaching, and it's kind of what I'm all about with this podcast. I want to help you with content that is of use from experts and people sharing their stories, and the more I can do in my understanding and my ability to help you with the emotional element of what you're going through, then that just makes me feel like I can do you a better service. So that's my motivation. Like I say, I've been working through the course material. I've been really like heads down this month working on it, and I've got a notebook full of highlighted brilliant tools, and I've got some really brilliant workbooks and audio kind of guidance scripts like meditations and visual imagery and all sorts of amazing stuff really. It's from a lady called Danny Griffiths, who I'm hoping to get to speak to soon. in my closed Facebook group so that you can get to know a bit more about her and her motivation for making this course I've been following. So I never get green lights like this. It's always stop and start. I'm getting the best drive. Right, okay, this is it. Basically, every Sunday I'm going to have to go on a drive and record all the intros and outros for my podcast with you on my journey, because you're obviously my traffic angel. So maybe if you're doing long journeys, you need to listen to my podcast and I'll be your traffic angel, especially if you're on a specific motorway or highway, if you're listening stateside, that you know is really busy. Do a little experiment, right? This is a little bit of a ask, and I don't normally do this, but I should do more of them. Do me a favour, listen to this podcast on a particularly annoying journey and tell me whether it helps with how the journey flows. Honestly, I am getting every green light. This is unheard of on this journey. We have a special power, you and I. So please take me on your journey, and then you can either tweet me or you can share a story with me on Insta. It's all at Fertility Poddy, and let me know whether I have been your traffic angel, because you might not know, and I'm so filling time now, and I apologise. You might not know that my background is in radio presenting, and I used to do travel. Very important. I used to do a breakfast radio show, and I used to help lots of people on their way to work. I felt very responsible. I also used to get loads of shit when I said road names wrong. If you ever hear somebody doing travel and they say the road name wrong, don't be nasty about them, because there are some complicated road names out there. There are some bizarre named roundabouts, and you should never judge somebody. They're doing their best. So yeah, I used to feel I had a little bit of a special power with the travel, because when we used to go on motorway journeys, when I was doing the travel, we used to get quite good runs, and I feel like there's something happening right now. I swear I have never had a flow like this. How long have I been? Right, I've been talking to you for 10 minutes, 11 minutes, which is what this journey is from my house to my parents' house on a good day. I might just have to stop it now, because I'm kind of running out of things to say without just talking absolute nonsense like we're on the phone and we're mates, and I know we're kind of mates, but otherwise you'll just start telling you all sorts of nonsense. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there and go and pick up my son, who's been gardening with my parents today, and I told him to ask them to teach him some Latin. He's only 4, but if he's learnt Latin, there's a red light. Just quite interesting. If Phoenix has learnt Latin, I'll be sharing that in another episode, because I bet you're just loving to know the outcome of that. Red light. Thank you as always for your support. Make sure you subscribe, and until the next time,